All right.
If there is an image to define this trip so far, well, this is it. A surprise for sure, and such a reflection of the quirks of history. Because Ahmed al-Shara is now the Syrian president, but he was an Islamist commander, aligned to al-Qaeda, a militant who fought the Americans in Iraq, jailed by them in the notorious Abu Ghraib prison. There was no sound on the images released, and so we don't know what they said, but as an indication of what seems uncharacteristically to be Donald Trump's message here of cooperation, opportunity, looking forward, it had all that.
But you have to stay down. You have to stay down. I'm working with him.
There is a tussle on this trip.
He has to stand. Down.
To decipher what the American president is up to here. Because at face value, we're getting a fresh vision of his foreign policy worldview. And it is at odds with Trump, the disruptor. The morning meeting with Gulf Arab leaders was about investment first, but under it, geopolitical cooperation. The two go side by side here.
And I think
And after the opulence and business deals of day one, it was more about the diplomacy on day two. A nuclear deal with Iran, maybe, and Israel, Gaza.
In Gaza, my administration shares the hope of so many in this region for future of safety and dignity of the Palestinian people. But that cannot happen as long as Gaza's leaders take delight in raping, torturing, and murdering innocent people. Can't have it. I greatly appreciate the constructive role that the leaders in this room have played in trying to bring the...
This is why I think the Hamas goodwill is not going to get them anywhere, for the record. The goodwill demonstrated by Hamas with the hopes that, like, Trump will directly talk to them. The goodwill demonstrated by Hamas in the release of Eden Alexander was a way to sidestep Israel and to show the Trump administration that Israel was actually the one ruining the ceasefire conversations. Okay? Once again, Hamas and virtually every other Palestinian liberation group mistakes or misjudges the humanity that their colonial oppressors have. Okay? They do not care, I don't think. And I'm really worried about this, but I don't think that the Trump administration, especially with commentary such as this one, do not give me great hope that they will try to manage a way out of this conflict, because that would require undermining Israel's position, but that would also undermine America's position, because this is America's position.
Terrible conflict to an end.
That was it, though, publicly at least, on Gaza, the elephant in every gold-gilded room he went to. The farewell from the Saudi Crown Prince reflected the closeness of this relationship, the trappings of power shared. On the flight to Qatar, a few words on the meeting which defined the day.
How did you find the Syrian president?
Great. I think very good. Young, attractive guy, tough guy. You know, strong pass. Very strong pass fighter.
Does that worry you at all?
Strong pass.
Pulling it together.
Strong pass, real fighter. Bro, he beheaded people. Trump's own Zelensky, by the way. This is Trump's Zelensky, straight up. Every admin going forward's got to have a Zelensky. This is Trump's.
And then jet escorts again, this time above the Persian Gulf. And from Air Force One, he arrived into Doha, into the hands of the royal family who want to give him a new plane. And he hasn't just brushed aside the conflicts of interest, he's doubled down here, insisting it is all fine. At the Emir's palace, a sword dance, camels, and Arabian horses to greet a motorcade led by Tesla Cybertrucks. Qatar hitting all the right buttons for the American president. But beyond all that, this leg of the trip is less about trade and about money and more about geopolitics, because Qatar has proved itself to be a country that's capable of doing delicate diplomatic deals in a way that few other countries can. On Gaza, Qatar has been the intermediary between the Americans and the Israelis on one side and Hamas on the other. The hostage negotiations have been driven from here. Hamas has a political office here. And Trump's chief negotiator, Steve Witkoff, he is here too. You have to wonder what progress on ceasefire talks are behind this hug. We don't know because it was all about the decor here.
As a construction person, I'm seeing perfect marble. This is what they call perfecto.
Then a hint on another challenge and the prospect of a Zelensky-Putin meeting this week.
I know you're very much involved in helping us in other regions, like what's happening with Russia, Ukraine, etc. And I think we're having some pretty good news coming out of there today and maybe tomorrow and maybe Friday, frankly. But we'll see about that.
The evening, as it was last night, was a state dinner for the American president and his guests. Mark Stone, Sky News, in Doha. It was an air escort fit for a king. Saudi fighter jets flanking Air Force One on the president's approach into a place where he feels comfortable. If the Saudi-US relationship has had its ebbs, well, it feels now like it's flowing. Down to the tie with the carpet, there is a match between this president and the crown prince here to...
Purple carpet is significant because it's the royal color. And they even gave him the highest honor that the kingdom can offer to anyone.
Greet him. Just as he did in his last term, Donald Trump has chosen Saudi Arabia again for his first major foreign trip. Now, though, they are two leaders more confident, more powerful, more self-assured, and they see opportunities and money. This was the full Saudi welcome from a country transformed so fast, where change that took Western nations centuries has happened here in one generation.
You got a 21 gun salute and shit, like, you're fucking with us? No, nothing I said is a joke. It sounds like a joke, but it's not.
Trump the president was here, but so too was Trump the businessman. In a gilded palace and with America's most successful CEOs with him, he must have felt quite at home. The so-called tech bros had traveled thousands of miles to be here. The richest man in the world, Elon Musk, and the man shaping AI, Sam Altman, among a long list of founders and CEOs from some of the world's biggest companies here for investment. Because symbiosis is what all this is about. It's about what America can offer Saudi Arabia, but now more than ever, it's about what the Saudis can do for America. And so the signing ceremony was the first order of the day, and the jewel in the crown, a $600 billion strategic economic partnership deal with the Saudis, including the largest defense sales agreement in history, we're told. This is, of course, a relationship that stretches back many, many decades through consecutive presidencies and one royal family.
I'm not going to say what America deserved. But, like, the way that the media is presenting all of this as though, like, Trump is a great negotiator and he's bringing all these countries to heel. I don't know if they're fucking wish casting or I don't know what's going on, but I do not see Israel's actions. I do not see Israel's actions in the backdrop of all of this as in any way, shape, or form conciliatory to the very reasonable demands being made by Hamas. And I don't hear a lot of criticism from at least Saudi leadership about said actions. As I've told you before, MBS does not give a shit about the Palestinians. He actually sees the Palestinians as a nuisance, getting in the way of his deals that he wants to make openly with Israel.
But it feels now to be more important and with more opportunity than ever before. The president got the trip down memory lane as he arrived at the investment forum. Inside, the soundtrack was his, playing now in Riyadh, and with a smattering of MAGA hats. The American cabinet, the Saudi royal court, and the billionaires' front row.
You achieved a modern miracle, the Arabian way. That's a good way.
For his speech of the day.
And it's
There's something so funny about Witkoff sitting there. If you know his background, you understand the dark humor in this. Virtually all of Witkoff's, or not Witkoff, sorry, fucking Lutnick. I said Witkoff, I apologize. I'm actually talking about Lutnick, Howard Lutnick. If you know anything about the background of Howard Lutnick, you know that if you know anything about 9/11, or specifically about Howard Nutlick, the people in that room have direct involvement with virtually every single person that he knows dying on 9/11, including his brother. But of course, ever the great deal maker, Howard actually found a way to capitalize on the death and destruction that his the company that he was a part of, the company that he actually had seized control of, experienced, including his brother dying, and made a lot of money off of suing the airlines for allowing 9/11 to happen. He then took away a big chunk of the trial awards away from people in his company that needed it, and the family members that needed it. A group of families whose relatives worked for Cantor Fitzgerald and died on 9/11 pressed Howard Lutnick for help ahead of the presidential trip to stop, including Saudi Arabia. Yeah, okay, good luck. Yeah, he's really doing that here. Cantor Fitzgerald was the Wall Street bank that Howard Lutnick was in charge of that lost like 700 people on 9/11. The only reason why Howard was spared was because he was taking his fucking child to kindergarten that morning. His brother died. He then turned around. He then turned around and successfully sued the airlines for their responsibility of 9/11 happening. Won hundreds of millions of dollars. And then instead of distributing those resources, those dollars evenly with the rest of the families of the victims from Cantor Fitzgerald, he pocketed large chunks of it. He distributed the award. He distributed the awards from the said trial by share in the company. A fucking real freak through and through.
Court and the billionaire.
That's a good way.
For his speech of the day.
And it's crucial for the wider world to note this great transformation has not come from Western intervention, giving you lectures on how to live and how to govern your own affairs. Instead, the birth of a modern Middle East has been brought by the people of the region themselves.
Well, that was a pretty remarkable speech, despite the tariffs and the upending of the world order that we've seen over the past few months. The message there was that America is open for business, politically, economically, ready to build bridges, put differences to one side, and work with all countries in this region, even Yemen, Syria, and Iran. A key headline was Syria. He said he's scrapping sanctions against the country, now free from Assad. It comes as the White House revealed that he is due to meet Syria's new president, once a jihadi fighting the Americans. They'll meet in the day ahead. It might confuse some people. When he's doing his speeches in America, it's all about America first. We don't really care about the rest of the world, seems to be the vibe. And then here, it was a wholly different message, I felt.
I think there's a misperception. I think the truth is that he obviously cares about peace around the world, and he spent his entire 4 or 5 months of his administration sending his emissaries around the world to create peace deals, right?
We're strategic partners. They need us and we need them. I mean, that's just the way the ball rolls.
The evening was the state banquet. The morning will bring the diplomacy. He'll meet key Arab leaders before travelling on to Qatar, where they will surely try to outdo the spectacle today. Mark Stone, Sky News.
Yes, the mayor of Miami was there. No, that's not true. He literally took care of every single family. He took care of every single family. I don't know why he's saying that, because I know No, he set up a fucking 501c3 for the victims, but it is not a lie that he took the lion's share of the fucking awards from that trial. He distributed it by, literally, he distributed it by shares, which he happened to have the most of. I don't care about your personal involvement with Howard Lutnick. Every single thing I said is correct. No, it's not Lutnick in the chat. So what, he lost the most too seems reasonable? That's hilarious. Okay, dude.
In Riyadh.
The latest now on President Trump arriving in Qatar this morning, the second stop of his 4-day trip to the Middle East, where he's mixing diplomacy with business deals. Chief White House correspondent Mary Bruce traveling with the president. Good morning, Mary.
Good morning, Georgia. President Trump now on the second leg of his visit here in the Middle East, here in Doha. But before leaving Saudi Arabia early this morning, the president having an historic visit with the new president of Syria, the first by an American president in more than 2 decades. This morning, President Trump touching down in Qatar. Trump kicking off the second leg of his 3-country tour to the Middle East after visiting Saudi Arabia. Trump this morning marking a major shift in U.S. policy towards Syria, meeting new Syrian President Ahmed al-Shara alongside Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, with President Erdogan of Turkey joining by phone.
With the support of leaders in this room, and the great leaders you are, we are currently exploring normalizing relations with Syria's new government.
The face-to-face coming just hours after Trump announced he would lift sanctions on Syria, now that the Assad regime has crumbled.
I will be ordering the cessation of sanctions against Syria in order to give them a chance at greatness.
It's a move, Trump says, came at the request of the Saudi Crown Prince.
Oh, what I do for the Crown Prince.
The first major foreign trip of Trump's second term focused on strengthening business ties with the Middle East. Joining him, leaders of some of the world's most powerful companies, from IBM to Google and Uber, and of course Elon Musk. The president now touting a $600 billion investment in the U.S. from the Saudis, though details are sparse. The Saudis giving Trump the royal treatment. The Crown Prince rolling out the lavender carpet. Trump piling on the praise.
I like him a lot. I like him too much. That's why we give so much, you know? Too much. I like you too much.
The president describing a transactional approach to foreign relations based on making deals regardless of past history. From embracing the Saudi Crown Prince years after U.S. intelligence concluded he orchestrated the murder of Washington Post journalist Jamal Khashoggi, to forging ties with Russia's Vladimir Putin.
In recent years, far too many American presidents have been afflicted with the notion that it's our job to look into the souls of foreign leaders and use U.S. policy to dispense justice for their sins.
But hanging over the visit, serious questions about Trump's own business interests. His sons, who now run the Trump Organization, have projects in the works in all 3 countries he's visiting.
Trump Tower, Jeddah.
Bro, he's not old and fulfilling his fantasies. He's just becoming a Turkish-style dictator. I don't think people understand. Everything he's doing for pure profit is people that are outside of America. If you grew up outside of America, you've already seen this. If you grew up in Latin America, if you grew up in Turkey, if you grew up in the fucking region, if you grew up in the Middle East, if you grew up outside of the West, okay, this is not even remotely unique. What's unique is America doing it, and an American president doing it, and also doing it in broad daylight, with the media basically just kind of being in alignment. It's pretty funny. This is how it always goes. Person comes into power, uses the fucking weight of the office to generate tremendous amounts of wealth for himself and his family and his friends. And that's it.
coming soon.
Trump now in Qatar, which he once called a funder of terrorism. But now he's poised to accept that extraordinary gift from the royal family, that $400 million luxury jet known as a flying palace, to be used as Air Force One before being transferred to his presidential library. The proposed deal raising serious questions about what it will cost American taxpayers to retrofit the jet to modify its security, and whether the gift violates the Constitution's ban on gifts from foreign heads of state. Trump overnight defending that proposed gift, saying the current Air Force One is less than impressive.
Some people say, oh, you shouldn't accept gifts for the country. My attitude is, why wouldn't I accept the gift?
But even members of his own party aren't sold.
I also think that the plane poses significant espionage and surveillance problems. So we'll see how this issue plays out. But I certainly have concerns.
And the president is kicking off his time here in Doha with a formal state visit, including a lavish state dinner tonight. He's also expected to speak to U.S. service members here in Qatar. George.
Mary, also news this morning that a company with ties to the Chinese government is investing several $100 million in one of the Trump family's crypto businesses.
Yeah, George, that's exactly right. GD Culture.
They're so funny. Remember, every time they say, wow, I can't believe that they accepted money from Qatar, they just mean like only Israel and Israel's allies in the region get to do that. Which, by the way, Qatar is also a part of the allegiance. They're just more neutral than the Saudis are. Partially because of Al Jazeera. Qatar gave Erdogan a jet? Okay, dude, that's nothing. Qatar giving Erdogan gifts is meaningless. Qatar is basically like a fucking holdover state in and of itself with a tremendous amount of wealth for Turkey. Accepting a plane from the people who did 9/11 is crazy? Yeah, except he didn't accept the plane from the Saudis. What the fuck? It's the Saudis that did 9/11, not Qatar. Classic American mind. Anyone but the Saudis are responsible for 9/11. All of which happens to be periphery states that Israel wants to deal with. Suspiciously.
Group, a small technology company with ties to China that operates on TikTok, announcing plans to purchase up to 300 million of the Trump Bitcoin. They are just the latest business with foreign ties to jump into the president's cryptocurrency business. And all of this is coming as the president is working on a deal to allow TikTok to continue operating in the U.S. Ethics experts are sounding the alarm about conflicts of interest, but the White House insists the president is following the law.
Yeah,
George.
We've never seen a mix of personal finance and diplomacy like we're seeing on this trip and in the early months of this presidency. Mary Bruce, thanks very much.
To believe this man was once an Al-Qaeda militant with a $10 million US bounty on his head. But the man who became Syria's leader after the ouster of the dictator Bashar al-Assad is now shaking hands like old friends with Donald Trump.
How did you find the Syrian president?
Right. I think very good. Young, attractive guy, tough guy. You know, strong pass. Very strong pass fighter.
Hasan the Hun chat effect on Dropsite News subscriber chart following Jeremy Scales' interview today? Hell yeah. They deserve it.
It was the first time in 25 years that the leaders of Syria and the US had met, and they did so at the behest of the Saudi crown prince, who'd persuaded Trump to break with US policy and lift America's crippling sanctions on Syria. Cue elation on the ground in Damascus, where the lives of ordinary Syrians have been shattered by years of civil war and American sanctions that have choked its economy for more than 4 decades.
This is a second happiness and a second liberation. The sanctions will be lifted, which means a revival is coming. No more economic crisis.
It's embarrassing to admit, but I was supposed to be a supporter of Hamas for a long time, but after listening to your conversation with Jeremy, I realized how uneducated I was on the topic and the level of nuance it requires. Sorry for hating. I was only exposed to commentary from Asman and others. What? I was ignorant, but I think your conversation with him will help a lot of people that are like me. Damn.